Welcome to 20 Minutes of Clarity.
I am Jason Noble, your host, and I have with me today is Andy the Man Merchant. I am so excited to talk about something that no one else talks about, Andy. This is less mainstream topics, but equally important to overall wealth. And it could be different topics that we're going to be covering over the next few podcasts. You okay if we kind of dive into kind of like a high-level overview of what those could be, and then we'll talk a little bit about each one today within our podcast, but kind of kicking it off, umbrella policies being one, RMDs, child education funding strategies, healthcare premium rules, director and officer coverage, or just some things off the top of my head and from your notes, obviously, Andy. But I thought it was interesting that you wanted to put in there umbrella policies. Give us a high-level overview of what those are.
Well, and I think I'd add as we kick into this and kick this off, where this really came about was, Jason, we have so many conversations with clients every day. One of the benefits of working with us and with our advisory team is, we can bring other clients' experiences and solutions that we've solved for to the table, right? And it could apply to you. So, you got to be looking at, I'm telling everybody out there, your advisor could be that partner who can take someone else's life story or something that they've gone through, their experience, not their life story, but their experience, and say, oh, this is applicable to you, right? And then we have real life cases on a regular basis. And then, so that's where a lot of these conversations, these topics we're going to cover these are just kind of the things that aren't part of our traditional plan analysis that get brought up, right? And so the reason I started with umbrella policies is, especially if you have certain net worth, a lot of people are like, well, what's an umbrella policy? I already have insurance. Why do I need an umbrella policy? And so I'm really excited to kind of, and when we talk about it in an upcoming podcast, is to go into details of when and what it is and how it fits. But I just want to share one story. I was just talking to a good friend of mine the other day, has an umbrella policy, which, by the way, the recommendation that he gave me was that if you take out your IRAs and your retirement assets, and you have $500,000, and just $500,000, you should have an umbrella coverage. But my particular friend's situation was just explaining to me that he owns some rentals, has plenty of coverage on there, but an incident happened by the renter, led to now a number of people are providing lawsuits. And if he didn't have the umbrella policy, then the illegal expenses to protect himself as a landlord, even though he was done nothing wrong, would eat up his cost. I know another individual that owns an event center and had an incident. People that own nightclubs and things like that, we know there's some incidents that happen on a regular basis, has gotten triggered with a lawsuit, and now has their umbrella policy hopefully to kick in the event that their insurance doesn't. So the simple thing is that people, this is for people that have wealth that they want to continue to protect outside of deferred assets. That provides additional protection. They're usually not very expensive, but it's something that's above and beyond.
Well, when I was going through the CFP studies, Certified Financial Planning studies, it was pretty clear and evident that if a question on the exam said, should this person have an umbrella policy? The answer, and this is very rare in financial planning, the answer was 100% of the time, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so for those who are listening that are in this industry, about to take their CFP, if you get anything out of what we're just talking about, just answer yes on that exam question. Should this person have an umbrella policy? Andy, your stories are great examples for those who own businesses or own special events. But the moms and pops out there that have a house and have a car, and they have something that comes up, they want and strongly encourage that they consider an umbrella policy. But we're going to discuss what it is and how it works in a future podcast. Yep. Let's talk about healthcare premium rules. Oh, favorite topic. I mean, mainstream topic here. I mean, just to talk about healthcare. You're like, wait a second. You telling me when I retire, I got to pay premiums in my healthcare? And what are the rules and things of that nature? Yeah, a lot of fun topic, but an important topic.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that led you to send that as like, let's make sure we get this addressed?
Well, and this is going to hit a lot on a lot of the experience and conversations we've had with you, just because of your advanced focus on retirement planning in general. But what most people, right, don't know is that when you're doing your Medicare premium planning, there's a 2-year look back, and so if you're 64 years old and near in retirement, maybe you have a business sale, or maybe you end up having a large capital gain because you sold something in the markets or had bad advice from an advisor telling you to sell, and it jumps up your income in that year. It's not going to be until 2 years later that you're probably going to see that premium surcharge. And so it's understanding the fact that there's some planning that happens ahead of time that could impact you down the road is where we wanted to go with that.
Yeah, the 2-year look back is a very important thing, and there's some exemptions to that 2-year look back that is important for everyone to know. We'll talk about that when we go into that more detailed conversation. I would say that I had a client that qualified for that exemption. And actually, they weren't a client yet. They became a client after this conversation. I was like, you would most likely qualify for the 2-year look back exemption. Why hasn't your current advisor discussed this with you? And they're like, they haven't. I don't know why. And I go, okay, well, we've been meeting for 30 minutes and I identify this opportunity. If we were to file this exemption, it will lower your premiums by about $230 a month. Is that something that you would be interested in exploring with me? Oh, that was a resounding yes, right? And so then they hired me, and we did we filed the paperwork for the exemption. When I say we, they did it, but it was under purview of their accountant, and they got the approval. They got the approval, and it lowered their premiums. And here's the thing: they got paid back the extra premiums that they're paying because of the process. So anyway, because I knew about it, we were able to make an informed financial decision about it. So this is why we're going to do a podcast topic on this, so that you now know about it, right? Those are the ones that are watching and listening. They now know about it, and then they can see how they could avoid the 2-year look back issue.
Mm-hmm.
RMDs, required minimum distributions. Okay. I mean, we're going to have to figure out how to get coffee and caffeine out to everyone that's watching us as we go through these different topics. But this could be a very important thing around required minimum distributions. It could be a major tax time bomb that people are going like, wait a second, you're telling me I got to withdraw $80,000 when I only really need $30,000 from this account? Like, why? Well, yeah, the government's telling you that you got to.
Yep.
Real quick, what's the penalty now? Because they changed the penalty. What's the penalty if you don't do the proper RMD?
We're going to do a preview ahead. No, we're going to keep that. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's important. Is it's a 50% of your required RMD as a penalty if you don't.
That's right.
Take the appropriate.
And Andy, I'm going to jump in front of Andy here. They just changed it down to 25%. But my gosh, to go from 50 to 25% penalty, it's like, oh, thanks, Uncle Sam. You're still going to charge me a 25% penalty, and I still got to do the RMD, and I still got to pay taxes on that? Mm-hmm. No bueno. And I think, Andy, I think that we're going to be held accountable to this. I'm going to put it out there. We're also going to talk about QCDs, qualified charitable distribution. Mm-hmm. And how that could offset some of the RMDs as well.
Yeah. Well, I think to add, I think this will be an important one for those that are planning for RMDs, ahead of time, and understanding what you can do and the impact that you could have in front of it. So, a lot of people that we have that come into our office, I know what an RMD is. I know what a required minimum distribution. It's something I got to take at 70.5, right? It's like, well, no, it's already changed age. Yeah. Good thing about team, we're staying on top of it. But if you're in your early 60s, if you're in your mid 60s and you're like, I'm planning, there's some really cool things to consider in order to mitigate your RMD to what your earlier point was. And so I'm really excited to dive into some more specific strategies around RMD planning during that show.
And I'm not saying this is last but not least off of the preview. I think we may have one other one, but child education funding strategies. There's many ways to go about preparing for educational costs for children.
Or grandchildren.
Or yeah, or the meeting I had right before we jumped in to do this podcast, he has a 2-month-old granddaughter, and we're having this conversation right now. But it was interesting. I will say this: like, he goes, "Yes, I want to make sure that I help with college," but he said this, and it struck a chord with me. He goes, "I don't trust college like I used to be. So what if, 18 years from today, the college system is just different, and my granddaughter doesn't want to go to college? How can we make sure we account for that within the strategy and the approach that we want to take?" And I thought that was, it struck a chord with me, because it was like one of those things where this particular individual was very involved in politics. And he said this, right? And so I'm going, okay, I got to hear what he has to say here. But what are some of the things that you think we will be discussing in that part of the podcast when we go into child education funding approaches?
I think there's a lot of people, and a lot of the questions I'm getting is, okay, now that I've got these accounts, what's my access rules? Are they assets that can be used? What are the penalties if I don't use them for education, if I'm using a 529? And so those are some of them. And I think we'll probably even jump into, because it fits the topic, is just some tips on student loans. There's certain kind of rules around student loan transfer. What's the impact going to be? We've heard a little bit about how they're trying to forgive the student loans. Is there going to be an impact, on a tax side thing? So there's some things that are just unknown around, student loans and planning for education and getting education, and trying to control that a bit. So I think there's some fun ones to talk about around there.
Yeah, so we could be discussing 529 plans, UGMAs, UTMAs. There's insurance policy approaches to be used as well for this type of thing. We would have to factor in FAFSA, what counts towards FAFSA.
Yep.
Student loans, that's a whole bailiwick of itself. I might have to bring in, if you're okay with it, bring in an advisor here in this office who's certified with student loans, and could offer his experience and insight over his credential around managing student loans, and the things to consider. So I think we're going to be set up for a good conversation on that one. And last but not least, as we wrap up to this podcast, you also had a note in for director and officer coverage for the business owners that listen in and pay attention to what we have to say here.
And it's not just business owner, Jason. That's why this one got brought up. Is and if you even tune into our Clear Picture Cares podcast, that I know that you're very heavy in, Jason, and we're building in markets. A lot of our clients, a lot of our viewers, a lot of our listeners are very passionate about helping in the community. And what many of them don't realize is that by being involved on a board does put you at potential risk. And so having proper coverage in place is something that you might want to consider, especially if you're heavily active in the board, if it's a board that or a nonprofit group that might have some more exposure to where you could get drug in as an officer or director of that board. So, but then it does expand into business owners as well. But I was really coming at it from a standpoint as for our clients that are not running large institutions, not on it, but are giving their time back through a board of a nonprofit, for example, or any board. They need to be aware of some exposure they have. So that is one. I have a great buddy of mine that talks to me about this all the time, and we were talking again the other day, and he was like, "Man, we need to revisit this again." And I'm like, "Well, you know what? Let's do one better. Why don't you share it with me and then share it with our wonderful viewers and listeners?" So he's gonna come on with some tips just to create some awareness around it. So I'm kind of excited for that.
Wonderful.
So yeah, we're gonna have some. It sounds like we've got some great speakers that will also be joining us for these series. So
yeah, by the time we're done with this podcast, it's gonna like the Brady Bunch opening with all the boxes and heads on it, and just 9 of us just talking over. I think that would be better than like I forget the name of the show on ESPN, but it's like everyone gets like points up or down based off their answer. Could you
Around the
imagine if we
horn.
had a voting, like a live stream, and we did voting on it? That would
Ooh.
be something. I mean, okay, like, hey, you're
Ooh.
hearing ideas right now as we're talking. It's just one of those things. Well, when I think of like director and officer coverage, I love that you put that spin on it. It's beyond just business owners and like their officers and directors. And it is about those on the boards, you know, and being part of the Rotary, we always talk about not just donating finances, your treasures, but also your time and your talent. And if that's the case, if you're donating your time and talents along with your treasures, and you're a director or an officer on a board, or you're the main person at the 502c3, the nonprofit, what are you doing to make sure that your passion, your vision is able to continue on in an event that something happens unexpectedly? So, I mean, we got to stop wrapping up our meetings, our podcasts on negative stuff. But like, let's talk about a positive thing as we wrap up today. We got a new website that we just launched. Tell us about that, Andy.
We're excited, right? I mean, this has been something we've been working on for a little while, but clearpicturefinancial.com, the go-to site. So when we built this, right, Jason, we wanted to create a place that people, that our listeners, our viewers, those that were interested in learning more about their wealth on their own journey to some degree, to go to that site. So if you go out and check out clearpicturefinancial.com, there's a couple cool things. One, if you're first time tuning into our podcast and you've heard about this for the first time, we have all of our podcasts and we have a ton of content out there. They're all 20 minutes. So the best part is you could listen to like 4 of them in the same time you could listen to the average podcast that's out there. So take a road trip, download on the Clear Picture, on the 20 Minutes of Clarity links. In addition, I think this is what I'm most excited about is using technology and using insight. We're able to take the content that we talk about and we're able to create really action-focused white papers that you can download, right? So sometimes it's good to hear us. Sometimes we're not at time. Sometimes we got kids in the background and we can't hear. It's hard to pay attention to this. Jason and I go down rabbit trails. It's fun. We just went ahead and said, let's just simplify it into a 1 or 2 page document with some actionable items. So we encourage you, download those white papers, get educated on that part of it all. And then the best part of the site, right, Jason, it's a way, there's 2 best parts of this, is that 1, it gives you the opportunity to get to know you and I better. We have some pretty cool feature profiles of you and I. We're always excited to talk to new people, right? I'm even going to throw you into that because I know you are. We're here for conversation. We built this site, we built this platform to help people simplify the complex relationship that we know that you have with your wealth. Like, it's up to you now to take advantage of that. I tell clients all the time, Jason, I can't care more about your education and your wealth plan than you do. But at the same time, I can't just keep filling their inbox up. There's many of you out there listening that I haven't even met yet. I want you to get exposed to us and our relationship, and we'd love to meet with you one day in time. So it gives you that option after you've kind of checked us out, maybe vetted us a bit. We'd love to schedule a time to go through it. It's a core value conversation meeting. It takes 30, 45 minutes, right? It's an opportunity to share your story, share your experience. Let us share a little bit more about the next steps and talk about if the Clear Picture analysis and the wealth program is something for you. So I'm excited. Check it out. We worked a lot of time on it. So website.
Andy, I just love that we had a chance to get connected today. For those that don't know, Rachel and I celebrated 15-year anniversary. Really excited. And we took 10 days to really just celebrate 15 years together. So I didn't get, and could you imagine this? I didn't talk to Andy for those 10 days. For those that are watching and listening, what spurred this podcast was we were talking on a daily basis. Andy and I were talking every morning as we were dropping off our kids to school around what we had going on that day, case studies and financial planning topics and matters. And it was like, I think it was Andy that said, like, what we're talking about, most people never hear true professionals discussing. Let's get together and record it, and like, let's get this out to those who care and want to learn more. And that's what spurred it. So 10 days, and here we are back at it, Andy. It's great. Great.
Yeah.
I'm still jealous over your beard game. I'm still working on mine. Right. But more to come on it. And I'll just say, Rachel was even the most impressed that we didn't talk for those 10 days. She was very proud of it. Proud of us, I should say, Andy.
Hey, it goes into our passion, right? I mean, we appreciate each other's opinions and that, but it does. It definitely sparks to the betterment of our clients. There's a lot of advisors that say they care about their clientele. There's very few that actually can collaborate with other professionals and say, let's go work at a team. Let's keep checks and balances. I mean, you even corrected me on here with the RMD rule, right? I mean, that's the power that our clients and those that engage with us get to see, is that it's a team approach. It's a partnership with the one common goal is that we want to help people make the most informed decisions around their wealth. And I think I hope everybody listening gets that, and I hope everybody listening that feels that, shares this. It would help to have more and more people getting engaged with our platform, because we spend a lot of time, right, Jason, creating this. We want everybody to hear it.
Well, you just heard from Andy, the man merchant, ATMM. So you go to him for the ATMs. And I am Jason Noble. That was 20 minutes of clarity. I hope you're having as much fun as we are listening to what we have to say. Thank you so much, and tune in next time.